Alright there everyone, how are you all doing? Hope you're keeping safe. Today I thought I'd take a look at a Marvel Legends figure. In this case it's the Retro series, because it's a standalone figure. It wasn't part of a wave, it was a like a single release. The Retro style figure, the Cyborg Spiderman. And yeah, I actually like this figure. Before we get into the review proper, just to let you know, I picked this guy up from the fine folks over at Kapow Toys. Now I know some folks have had issues with their customer services. Well, in recently they've had issues with it, but I've had no trouble with them as of yet. So, speaking personally, I recommend them. But if you have issues with them, I apologise, but it's not something I have personally had to deal with. Anyway, back to the figure itself. Now, this wasn't actually a figure I was originally planning on getting, but two major factors sort of made me need to get it. Now I'll get to those factors, but they'll become clear soon enough. But first of all, let me just go into the history of this particular version of Spider-Man, because as you can see, it's a really quite cool and striking design. It actually comes from that wonderful bygone era called the 90s. And it first appeared in Spider-Man issue 21 during the Revenge of the Sinister Six story arc. And it was actually pretty cool. It was after Spider-Man had gotten beaten down by Doc Ock and the new lineup at the time, Sinister Six. Luckily, he was found by some characters that had been introduced earlier in the story. And, well, he woke up with a cyborg arm. Though that's a bit of a misleader because, well, it isn't really a cyborg arm as such. It's more like a augmented cast. It was designed to help him keep his strength without damaging it any further and helping heal. If you want to look at a decent recap of the actual backstory of this design and the actual Revenge of the Sinister Six storyline itself, I recommend checking out Comic Pop's video on it on their back issue series. Really great video, really great people. I highly recommend them. But obviously, as you can imagine, this cool 90s design kind of led to, well, a really cool 90s figure. Because, let's face it, back then, if a character could have a figure made of it, they're having a figure made of them. And that particular figure, I actually owned. It was one of my few actual Spider-Man figures, and I really loved it. It came with this sort of metal backpack, missile launcher, giant robot arm, just very, very 90s, techno-futuristic accessory, and it was brilliant. I love that figure. I don't know what happened to it. I think it got lost at some point, but it was really brilliant. It was actually so cool, in fact, they re-released it in a 2-pack with Deathlock, and Deathlock of course had appeared on the cover of Spider-Man issue 21 where they first debuted this design, and he was in the story itself, and obviously they're both cyborgs, but that set was really, I'd seen it once and it was really great, but obviously it was expensive back then. I was only a kid, I couldn't really afford it. But this design has continued to remain popular. I mean, there's been other toys made of it. There was a Mini Mates as part of a 2-pack. That was pretty cool. I think that came with Songbird. No, anyway, it was part of a 2-pack. It was cool. There was a pop vinyl version, which is actually really cool. I tried tracking that down. I haven't managed to get a copy of it yet, or if I could, that'd be on my shelf, because that looks really cool as well. He's even appeared in video games, actually. The PS4 Spider-Man game, that's got this design as a skin in it. And it looks really cool. I mean, it's really weird how a great 2D design looks even better in 3D. I mean, it's a really great, cool design. I actually think the popularity of that in-game skin probably led to the creation of this figure. And I'm really glad about that, because this figure is really cool. And actually, if you want to know more about the making and the design process of this figure, check out on Disney Plus their 616 documentary series. They do one called 616 Unboxed, or Unboxing. Well, it's all about Marvel Legends and the creation of it. And the one they are using as an example, and the one you follow through, is actually this figure. And it's really interesting. And yeah, that series, as well as my nostalgia about having the original toy, are the two main reasons I eventually went, well, sod it, I'm ordering this figure. And I'm really glad I did. Okay, so let's go on to the review proper, shall we? This figure... Well, okay, let's do something I don't normally do. Let's talk about the packaging, which is something I really should have done with the other Spider-Man retro figures, but I think it's actually more appropriate with this one, seeing as it sort of came out at the time the packaging is trying to replicate. The packaging looks like the classic 90s Spider-Man cartoon toy packaging. It's really cool. It's really tempting. I find it really tempting just to keep the figures in the packaging and just display them like that, because they look like retro art pieces in this packaging. But no, I gotta take it out. I gotta play with it, and I'm really glad I did. This figure doesn't use the retro Spidey body, the one with the diaphragm joint. This one uses the Sunfire body, which is okay. It's got the more slightly lanky, toned musculature compared to the slightly thicker design that the other figure represents, and this one works really well. Obviously, it's got loads of extra sculpted details. The cyborg arm is all new. I think it's all new. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's got to be all new. There's details that comic book referential that just don't appear on any other arm I can think of that's been made into a Marvel Legends. You've got this great like Venetian blind style shoulder pad. Looks really cool. And it doesn't get in the way of the articulation. The figure is still as greatly articulated as you'd expect from this particular Spider-Man body. You can get into all sorts of poses. I know some people like, I don't know, some people don't like the way the hips work, but they work fine for me. But you might be able to see there's a slight QC issue with my figure, which I didn't notice until this actual review. One of his feet is missing part of his webline painting, and that doesn't bother me. No, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. And oh Jesus, I'm gonna have to repaint that or replace it. But anyway, figure looks great, and it comes with a few accessories. Pardon me, a few accessories. The right hand can be replaced with either a fist hand or a web flipping hand. Kind of wish it came with a wall crawling hand, but yeah, you know, I've got other Spider-Man hands that can fit in, so that doesn't bother me. What does kind of annoy me a little bit is you only get the one hand for the robotic arm, or the cyborg arm, which is in a clenched fist. It's okay. It's obviously designed from the cover that it obviously first appeared in. I kind of wish it came maybe with an alternative one. I know there's open hands you can get with figures like Deathlock or I think Skullbuster from one of the X-Men waves. I think you can replace those hands. They might be a slightly different silver, I'm not entirely sure, but it might be worth me tracking them down. But apart from that, no, the figure looks really cool. It also comes with this webline accessory, which I'm not a great fan of. I understand the idea behind it. I think the execution is the only problem though. I think if these figures came with a gripping hand, it would work a bit better, but as is, just looping it around the wrist, it never really looks right. I know some other companies have done them where they have the actual webline coming out of a moulded socket in the wrist or in the hand, or ones with the hand and the web are moulded together. That might work better, but it's an accessory at the end of the day. I don't have to display with it, and it will come in useful for other things. I just thought I'd mention it's not my favourite execution of the idea. Okay, it's comparison time. And I think someone's already copyrighted that catchphrase or that saying, but sod it. Here he is compared to some other figures. Up first, another 90s staple, Venom. The two look good together. Venom is sufficiently bulkier than this figure, and they work well together. Really like. Another 90s ne'er-do-well, Carnage. They both look good together. They both got a very busy but also highly detailed sculpt. Those two work good together again. And maybe something a bit more 90s noughties, or naughty for the 90s. Yeah. Black Cat. Two look good together. The Black Cat, by the way, is another great standalone figure that you can buy separately. I just recommend getting it. I'm not going to review it, but if you can pick her up. She's a great figure. And speak of standalone figures, I highly recommend. Here he is next to War Machine. I kind of wish I'd picked up the Deathlock figure. They did make a Deathlock figure. It was really, really cool. It's still available out there somewhere, but my collection wasn't really aiming for the 90s. I do sort of a lot more 60s, 70s and early 80s, but I might have to pick Deathlock up just to go with this figure. But yeah, as you see, it was good next to War Machine, and what can I say? They're both great figures. So, what's my overall thought on the figure? I really like it. Mine has a little QC issue, but that's my figure. It's not going to be every figure. The sculpt, the painting is really good. It's a unique design to have on your shelf. It'll look really good with the Spider-Man figures. It'll look good in a Spider-Man collection. In a 90s centric collection, that'll look really cool. A Spider-Verse collection, it'll work really well with that. And yeah, I highly recommend this figure. If you can find it online, I recommend you purchase it. Well, okay, that's it folks. As always, stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you next time. Ta-da!